Can everybody hear me? I know the mic is a little overkill for this room, but we are actually recording this talk, so any extra amplification is helpful for that. So thank you all so much for being here this evening. My name is Amanda Cooper, and I'm the curator for the Moffitt Art Center. I think the answer is no, but is there anyone who has never been here before? This is your first time? I think I pretty much almost know everybody here. Great. Well, thank you for coming out and supporting Elizabeth tonight. I'm sure you guys are all excited to hear more about her work. Just by way of introduction, I'll let her obviously speak about herself, but I've known her for several years. I think her work is amazing. She's been in group shows. She was in a two-person show at the Hermitage. I was just thinking about that the other day. It seems like it was a long time ago.
7 years ago.
7 years ago. She was in, we had a satellite gallery at the Hermitage a few blocks south of here, and she was in a two-person show, and her work is just incredible. And I'm lucky enough to own a work, a painting by Elizabeth, and it's one, I know it's amazing because it's one of the only works of art in my house, and I have a lot of art in my house, that my kids think is really cool. So, so that's how I know you're really good. My teenagers approve. So, but anyway, so you all probably know this, but the reason that Elizabeth has a solo show here this year is because last year in our members show, she won the Margaret Murphy Stewart Best of Show Award. And part of that award is the artist gets a solo show the next year during the next member show. So I was so happy when Amanda Poss, who is the curator at Hillsborough Community College in Tampa, when she said that Elizabeth's work won Best of Show. Because I thought, great, I know she's great to work with. So we're really honored to have her work here, and thank you for all the work you've done for this show, and thank you all for being here tonight.
Here are my parents in the 70s, before I was born, and they took over Barenis Music Company from my grandparents in the late 70s, and then had me and my sister Amy, and she's here tonight too. Amy's also an artist, and Amy is a person with Down syndrome, and so we had a very special, and still do have a very special relationship growing up. She let me be her teacher. These are some photos of the inside of the music store. You can see the walls of sheet music and the instruments that were there. And then on the right, once I was old enough to count and do math, my parents allowed me to check check out the customers and give them change. Also, growing up in the Mississippi Delta, if you don't know what the Delta is, it's an area of flat land next to the Mississippi River, and it's just, there's no hills in sight, there's no mountains, it's just completely flat, and because of that, it gives way to these beautiful sunsets. And so I was also witness to this wonderful act of nature that would happen every day. And driving home, we would see this, the beautiful clouds and colors. And the Mississippi Delta itself is kind of a poverty-stricken area. And so the sunsets were really a redeeming quality of living in that place. So I'll talk a little bit about early inspiration, besides sunsets, rainbows, and flowers. And you can see that in my early work. Well, I probably should paint more rainbows now. I don't know about kites, though. And sailboats, maybe. And definitely rainy city scenes. I still enjoy doing that. So my parents enrolled me in private art lessons in middle school, and that really helped to inspire me to continue with my passion for making visual art. At the same time, though, I was very good at other academics. I would get good grades in science and math. And so if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up, in 3rd grade, I would have said either the first female president, an Olympic ice skater, even though I had never been ice skating, or a veterinarian. So professional artist wasn't even on my radar. And maybe that's because it was just something that was ingrained in me, it came naturally, and it wasn't separate from me, you know. And so anyway, as I moved through school, you know, the question loomed, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do with your life? You know, and so it took me a long time to figure out what my path was. I ended up in the 10th grade applying to go to a math and science school for the last 2 years of high school. And it was 3 hours from home, and it was a type of boarding school. It was a public school in Mississippi, but it was for students who excelled in academics, and you had to apply and be accepted. And it was, you know, it was basically all the nerds in the state went there. And so it was a wonderful experience for me to be exposed to the type of diversity and culture that I hadn't experienced in Greenville at the prep school where I had attended for 10 years. So in that way, it opened my mind and made me think, oh, there's a whole world out there of things that I don't know about, you know. And so as I neared graduation, you know, they all wanted to know, what are you going to do? What are you going to major in? And I told everybody video production, because I had the opportunity to make a senior video, and I was like, man, this is cool. I really want to do this. And I applied and went to the University of Miami. Still not quite sure, you know, how all these interests were going to play together, and which marathon I was going to run. And at the University of Miami, you know, it's a huge school, and you had to write your student number on all the papers, so you're kind of a number. And they wanted me to take all these prerequisites that I had already taken in high school, like French and calculus. And I didn't actually get to take any video classes or film classes there that first year, and so that interest kind of waned. But I did have a really great drawing class. And my teacher, Brian Curtis, he not only taught us how to draw, but he opened our minds to different perspectives of thinking, and how the right brain works and the left brain, and which one is activated when you're drawing, and why you should think about what kind of music you're listening to when you're painting, because the lyrics, if your brain understands that language, then it's going to kind of compete with the other side that's trying to draw from like a, you know, place of higher consciousness. So again, the visual art kind of stood out in that curriculum. And after 1 year, I realized that Miami was a little bit too materialistic of a culture for me, and I transferred to Sarah Lawrence College in Bronxville, New York, which is a much smaller liberal arts school. And at Sarah Lawrence, you don't have to declare a major, and so I was able to explore all of my interests. And that was a really beautiful thing. I got to take music, I learned music theory, and I learned to play the violin there. Writing was something you had to do no matter what class you were in. You had to write these long papers. So quantum physics, I really had an interest in how the mind relates to the reality that we perceive, and the answer to that is in quantum physics. Psychology, I took the theories of the creative process. I learned to do bookmaking, I took philosophy, the history of math, I took religion, and my favorite subject was darkroom photography. And I just fell in love with the process of taking pictures with a film camera and developing it myself and then printing in the darkroom. And I really thought that I was going to be a photographer. I thought that was going to be my medium, so I had moved from video production now to photography. But as things turned out, the twists and turns in the road, it just became apparent that, I'll get to that. So as I neared the end of college, it was great to have exposure to all these different subjects, but at the same time I was very confused. It's like I have all these interests, what the heck am I going to do? And how do I narrow it down? And towards the end of the senior year, I was walking through the art department, and there was a brochure on a bulletin board that was asking for people to apply to the Chautauqua School of Art. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. And it was more of like a painting type of residency. So I applied, and I chose to do that. And it was actually a way to spend 2 months in the summer with 20 other painters and just kind of focus my energy on painting, which is what had been set aside for so long. So it was like I was returning back to what I'd always done. And then after Chautauqua, I moved back to Greenville, Mississippi, and spent some time with my family. I ordered an easel and got to work. And of course, I was still using photography in my art because I would work from my photos, which I still do today. So in a way, I'm a photographer first and then a painter second. Just hang in there and you'll see my films. So I'll speak a little bit about my artistic influences. There are 2 artists that really inspire me, and you can probably see a little bit of them in my work. The first one is Edward Hopper, and I really appreciate his work because it's very timeless, and the way that he portrays light, I admire that. And I think I like to paint the same subjects that he does. So you can see in this painting, it's kind of similar. And this is a quote from him. There is a sort of elation about sunlight on the upper part of the house. There are many thoughts, many impulses that go into a picture. I was more interested in the sunlight on the buildings and on the figures than in any symbolism. And here are some examples of his paintings. You probably recognize the one on the bottom as Nighthawks. And here are some of my paintings. And it's not like I looked at his painting and said, oh, let me do something really similar to that. It's just, we both enjoy the same subject matter. The other artist that I really appreciate is Salvador Dali. Not only because he's a terrific and was a terrific, skilled, talented artist, but also he had this way of bringing psychological concepts into his art. For example, he would make double images. So, there's 2 images here, and it's a matter of which one do you see. And he said that the way that you see both images is that you have to put your mind in a state of confusion or paranoia and kind of step back and ask yourself, is that really what's there, or what else is there? And so maybe you can see, I see the bust of Voltaire immediately, but this is called Slave Market with the disappearing bust of Voltaire. So initially there's all these people standing here, right? You see the faces, and if you step back and look, it's actually a bust, and the faces become the eyes, and this is the nose and the chin, and the neck and shoulder. And so I was fascinated by how one thing can be two things, depending on how you look at it. And which one do you see? And what does that tell you about who you are? About which one do you see first? So I decided to make a painting that was like a tribute to Dolly. This was in 2008, and I wanted to hide a face in it, just to try my hand at it. And this is called French Cafe with a Sideways Face, from a photo that I took in Paris. And if you turn it sideways and look hard, Dolly was much better at it than I am. And those are the eyes, and there's the mouth. And once I accomplished this, and I consider this one of my favorite paintings for the first decade of my career. But once I accomplished this, I thought, am I going to continue hiding things in the paintings? And I thought, no, I think I'd rather have people find things on their own that I didn't intend to be there. It's not a game of hidden pictures for me. So my style evolved in a way to accommodate that. And people were asking me, what is this called, these straight lines and these shapes that you use? And I came up with the term abstract precisionism. So it's abstracted from reality, and I use these clean lines and straight edges and generalized shapes. And that sort of creates a springboard for the viewer to interpret however they please. So I always say it's like looking in the clouds, and I might see a cat and you might see a dog because you're a dog person and I'm a cat person. So I guess the point is kind of like what you see tells you a little bit about your own self. And in that way, the viewer becomes the subject of the work. Here's a painting to exemplify what I was explaining. And when you stand back, you can see, oh, it's a landscape. It's a foggy landscape of Monterey, California. And you can see the road or the sidewalk and the trees. You know what it is. It's based in reality. But if you look closely at the shapes, you might make something else out of it too. And I see a woman reaching for a baby in a bassinet. But you might see something entirely different. So anyway, back to the long and winding road of being an artist. Once I decided to pursue this as a career, I entered my art at festivals. I also tried making candles and selling earrings and things, anything that I could make and sell and make a little bit of money at. I tried. Unfortunately, the wind would blow over the paintings and things so much. It really wasn't the route for me. I prefer galleries. I also taught for VSA Arts of Mississippi, which is Very Special Arts, and it's a program that funds artists to go into the public school system and teach art to the special needs children there. And so I was able to do this for 4 years for Amy's class. And you can see Amy on the right, my sister. And this is in the gallery that my father created for me in his music store. After I graduated, he cleared out a corner of the store and gave me a place to show my paintings and sell art supplies. And so, that support was still there, even though, I came home and told my parents, oh, I'm going to be a painter, and they're like, how excited could they be about that? It's a long road, but they were always supportive, and still are. Mom's here today. So, this is another picture of one of the paper mache projects that I did with the class. I also entered my art in as many shows as I could, starting out. The black and white one is mine in this group show. And I was able to have my first solo exhibit in Lake Village, Arkansas between refilling water glasses and clearing plates, I was eavesdropping about what people were saying about my work, and then, also from time to time selling a piece. But eventually, the trays got too heavy. I needed to change what I was doing after 7 years, and I needed a sit-down job. So I applied to be a receptionist at a dermatologist's office. At least I thought I was going to be a receptionist, but when he found out that I could do math, I ended up becoming his insurance builder. And so that was a whole new field that I learned, in how to file insurance claims and appeal them and make sure all the patients' accounts are reconciled. And so that got me at least out of the restaurant and, doing something different. But still, the calling was there to try something new. I needed a change. And so in 2012, I applied to all kinds of jobs across the country. And the one that answered was in Little Rock, Arkansas, doing medical billing for a dermatologist there. And I took it. It landed me in a windowless room, small windowless room with another lady, and we were just working 40 hours a week, typing and, crunching numbers. And eventually I moved up the ladder and became the manager of the department, and I got a window. But at the same time, after a couple of years, I'm thinking and I'm asking the world, is this really what you want from me? You want me to sit at a desk for 40 hours a week when, I want to be creating, I want to be doing stuff with my hands, and that had been my plan. I was going to be a painter, but, what am I doing at this desk job? And so the answer came when I got the opportunity. Well, it was a balancing act. I forgot to mention that. It was a real balancing act to try to paint and do the medical billing. So the answer came when I had the opportunity to move here to St. Petersburg and move into the family home that my grandparents built when they retired from the music store in Greenville. And I took that opportunity and never looked back. And that was 9 years ago. The house needed a lot of work. There was a lot of deferred maintenance. And so I watched a whole lot of YouTube videos and did most of the work myself, replacing the kitchen cabinets, putting in new flooring, scraping the popcorn off the ceiling and repainting the entire inside of the house. And at the same time, I created a studio in one of the spare bedrooms so that I could get back to painting and finish those paintings that I've been lugging around for 3 years since Little Rock. And this was kind of a turning point because I thought, what, this is a good time for me to find a coach. I need an art coach and someone who can also serve as my assistant at times. And I found the perfect one, and this guy named Charlie. And Charlie helps me a lot because I'll show him a painting and he'll give me his opinion. So like, for example, this painting that I did of 2 dogs, we got a name on that one. But when I showed him the picture of the cat that's expressing superiority over the dog, we got a yes on that one. So, but all joking aside, it was time to really dive into my art, and I took advantage of every opportunity I could find when I first moved here. So entered into art shows, and I rented a space at St. Pete Artworks, it's still around. It used to be on the 600 block of Central. Now it's moved farther down, but I rented a wall there and had a show there. This is a photo of the show that Amanda was talking about at the Hermitage across the street. This is at the gallery at Creative Pinellas, and they've been very fundamental in helping me find opportunities and connect with the community. I received their Emerging Artist Grant 2017 and the Professional Artist Grant last year. This was at Edgar College. The studio at 620. And then around 2016, I went out for a walk at night and took a photo of some palm fronds that had this dramatic lighting. And I thought, well, this will be different. I'll try this, So I painted this painting. This is my very first palm frond painting called Night Palms. And it was very well received. And I really liked how it came out. And I thought, this is cool because, you know, it's Florida, but it's also really abstract. And it's a new way to interpret our landscape. So I really, you know, I just went with it and said, you know, what else can I do with these palm fronds? And they got bigger and bigger. This diptych was shown at the Staybridge Suite and was later acquired by Save and Trust Bank. And so if you are out at night on Central, it's right across from the James Museum. And usually they keep the windows open in the conference room, and you can see these paintings hanging there. This one actually, this is Palm Triptych, and it came about because I had some interest from a corporate client who wanted me to propose some art for their conference room. And I gave them 3 or 4 proposals, and they decided to go a completely different direction. Didn't want any of my proposals. But I liked one of the proposals so much, I decided to do it anyway. I thought, this is going to be a cool project, and I'm just going to do it, and then hopefully I'll find a buyer, you know. And that's what I did. And eventually it was sold to a private collector. This is an 8-foot wide piece called A Sign of Something Different, A Sign of Something Greater. And it recently sold to a new residential project in Sarasota for their lobby. They hung it sideways, which surprised me, but actually it looks kind of cool sideways. I probably should have tried looking at it sideways myself before I hung it horizontally. This is the biggest painting I've done, and it's at the Dunedin Parks and Recreation Center. I really, when the call came and said, hey, do you want to apply to do a mural? I was like, I don't know about murals. The scaffolding, I don't like heights, there's so much involved. And, Elizabeth Brinklow, she's been very great about connecting artists with opportunities. And she was like, no, I think your work would be good as a mural, and you should really think about applying. So I did it, and they chose me. And I'm really glad it all worked out, because I was so hesitant to take the opportunity, but then it really had a good outcome. This one, I took this photo right before I was going to deliver this painting to a collector. Moffitt Cancer Center acquired this one last year. It's in their McKinley campus in the lobby on the 2nd floor. And then earlier this year, I had the opportunity to participate in this project in Port Richey, where I worked with the interior designer to come up with 25 prints of my work. So they're high quality G-clay prints that will fill the hallways of this clinic. And the clinic is a multidisciplinary facility that accepts everyone, no matter their income level. And so I took a lot of my images, and you can see the image on the left is the same painting that's at the end here. It's called Sunbath. For this setting, I dialed down the colors digitally before I printed it so that I could match their color palette. So this year I found I can take the images I've already created and keep using them and turn them into new things. The healthcare facilities seem to be gravitating towards me and my art, and I'm glad, because I want my art to elicit feelings of calmness and tranquility, and I think those are qualities that help with healing. And so I'm thrilled that it keeps getting out there into the medical field and to doctors' offices. This painting was recently commissioned by Orlando Health for Bayfront Hospital here in St. Pete. And the project is not finished yet, but I'm allowed to tell you about it. And it's a diptych that's 12 feet long, and the original will hang in one of their buildings. We don't know which one yet. But what they're going to do is take a photo of it and blow it up to this 100-foot wall outside of the emergency room. And this is kind of what it will look like when it's finished. So hopefully that'll be finished by the end of this year. We're not sure. Those renovation projects sometimes get delayed. So now I want to share with you a short slideshow. It's 4 minutes. I'll play a little bit of music, and it's my paintings that span 2004 to 2024. It's 20 years worth of work. It's not every single painting. It's 100 paintings. And so I invite you to sit back and enjoy. I'll play that. like I did last year when I won Best in Show here at the Moran. And, but you know, success is not about winning, but it sure does help. Simone Biles says, find your passion, run with it, and never look back. And that's what I did, and that's how I ended up here at Tropical Splendor. And this presentation has been approved by Coach Charlie. So I'll be glad to take any questions. Thank you all for coming.
What was the piano piece?
Let's see, it was Chopin, Waltz number 9 in A flat major.
When you're working on a piece that large, do you typically start at the top and work your way down, or how do you approach it?
That's a good question. I have the photo that I'm working from, right? And I map out the quadrants and kind of sketch it in chalk to begin with, the outlines. But then as far as filling in the colors, usually I do the darks first. It just depends on the image. I want to, as quickly as I can, get an idea of the shapes that are going to be there, the main shape, to make sure I have that right before I put in too much detail. And so it's actually, I try to do like part on the bottom and part at the top to try to bring it all together slowly as it emerges as one thing, rather than, you know, just slowly doing details and details. It's just, I want it to look decent as quickly as possible. That's kind of how I approach it. Phil, do you have a question?
Yeah, the term abstract precisionism, you made that up?
Yes.
So is that in art books now?
I don't know if it's going to make the art history books.
I mean, they could have, I don't see why not, right?
You know, I use the hashtag on
There was some
Instagram.
professor, Sarah Lawrence, who writes books, and get it.
Trademark it.
Well, you're going to have some free time pretty soon, aren't you? Maybe I can put you on that task.
Yeah.
Yes, hopefully it will be.
Yeah, I'll see why not.
Is the video on the website?
The video of what?
The progression, the 20-year progression.
Oh, no, it's not. But that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll put all the paintings in there and make it a 20-minute video. Put people to sleep.
Bedtime video.
Yeah. Anybody else?
What type of paint do you use to get everything so flat and smooth?
I use acrylics.
And is it out of the tube or is it out of the liquid acrylics?
Oh, I use heavy body acrylics.
Okay.
But I do bend them down some to create thin layers.
Okay.
So sometimes I use medium, sometimes I just use water.
Because everything's so perfect. I mean, mine, I have brushes that everything's like.
It's abstract precision.
Yes, she's precise.
I'm very precise.
Speaking of precision, your lines, this is just by brush? Or do you put tape and then take it off? Or how do you get these straight lines?
I knew that question was going to come up. Yes, I do use tape on the ones that, like these really big ones. For a while I was not using tape, and then it was really bothering me because I'd look at the painting in a certain direction and see the squiggles. And so I decided to just give myself a break, and I want a straight line there, so I use tape. And I think that having the really, really straight lines helps make it more accessible.
I got another academic question. Have you seen or know of studies that show that the colors that you use and the subject matter are good for people's health, and that's why they're in healthcare facilities? Is that something that they've looked at or you looked at?
That's a good thing. I need to look more into that because I do have a book about color therapy where they actually use colored light to heal.
Mm-hmm.
intuition.
And I wonder if also the nature scene is just more calming than a man-made buildings and bridges and cars and things like that. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I will have to look more into that. I'll get back to you at the next artist talk.
I wanted to you right away.
Right away.
So it looked like, it looks like you sort of did landscapes at first, then you kind of had like sort of intimate images with people, and now you've kind of gone to like highly detailed, like organic palm trees. That's really, like, do you have anything else that you're like, are you noticing you're transitioning to anything else at this point, or?
It's kind of like I go in circles because, I'll do a whole bunch of these plant type subject matter paintings, and then I'm like, I gotta do something different, and so I'll do a scene with people in it, or, a woman in it that's like looking out in the distance. And, just recently I look back and I'm like, wait, I've done several of those where there's a woman looking out in the distance. And so I kind of repeat myself, but it's over a very long period of time. So, but I do have plans to, do something different. I want to do more foggy scenes of the coast of California, and I have some great photos from Austria when I was there in 2018. They're just sitting there waiting. So hopefully, get around to it. All right, well.
Yeah.
We'll put it on your website. Put the film on your website.
Thanks, Will. All right, well, anybody else?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I just think they're very soothing, and they're also, they seem to be solid and clean. Overall, I think that's about your work, and you have a lot of variety, and I congratulate you for sticking with it, because it's not an easy thing. And on some level, it seems like you just always stuck with it, so good for you.
Thank you. Thanks. Did you want to say something?
Oh, something was mentioned here about cubism.
Oh, yeah, I threw out the word cubism because it might be one of the art movements that people know. And it also involved a lot of like straight lines and layers and things like that. So it's kind of an echo. Yeah. All right, well, thanks again for coming.